Commander Hyun-woo pressed his face against the cold metal window of the survey ship. Below him, Earth spun slowly in the darkness of space. The blue and green planet looked exactly the same as it had 3 days ago, but something was terribly wrong. Report, he called to his team, though he already knew what they would say. Lieutenant Eun-ji looked up from her scanning equipment, her dark eyes filled with confusion. Sir, there are no humans anywhere on the planet. Not a single life sign. She paused and checked her readings again. But everything else is still there. The lights are on in the cities. Cars are parked in the streets. There are even meals left on tables that are still warm. Hyun-woo felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He had been working with humans for 15 years as part of the Galactic Council's joint operations. They were strange creatures, these humans. Not the strongest, not the smartest by traditional measures, but they had something special. They could solve problems that left other species scratching their heads for months. Any messages? Distress calls? Anything? He asked. Communications specialist Ji-woo shook her head. Nothing, sir. The last transmission from Earth was exactly 72 hours ago. It was just a routine weather report from the Beijing station. The ship's artificial intelligence spoke in its flat, emotionless voice. Analysis complete. All human settlements across 17 star systems show the same pattern. Complete evacuation within a 72-hour window. No signs of struggle or forced departure. Hyun-woo walked to the command center and opened a communication channel to the Galactic Council headquarters. Within minutes, the main screen filled with the worried faces of alien leaders from across the galaxy. The first to speak was Ambassador Zelith, whose tentacles moved nervously around his blue-skinned head. Commander, please tell me you have found them. My people are already facing food shortages. Without the farming techniques that Dr. Minute-ho taught us, our desert worlds will become completely barren within 6 months. Another voice joined in, this one belonging to the insect-like Kresh leader. Our territorial wars have already started again. Captain So-young was supposed to arrive yesterday to help us sign the peace treaty. Without her, my people and our neighbors will destroy each other. More voices filled the channel. Each alien leader had the same story. Humans had been helping them, teaching them, solving their problems. And now they were all gone. Did anyone see this coming? Asked Hyun-woo. The channel fell silent. Finally, the old Kresh elder spoke up. There was a council meeting last month. Some of the younger members were saying that humans were becoming too influential. They wanted to reduce their role in galactic affairs. What exactly did they say? Hyun-woo pressed. Ambassador Zelith's tentacles curled inward with shame. They called humans primitive. Said their emotional decision-making was holding back galactic progress. Council of Rex suggested that humans should return to being a junior member species. Hyun-woo remembered that meeting. He had seen the human representatives sitting quietly as the other species debated their fate like they weren't even in the room. Dr. So-minute, the chief human diplomat, had said nothing during the entire discussion. She had simply taken notes and smiled politely when the council decided to reduce humanity's voting rights. Sir, Lieutenant Eun-ji called out, I'm getting reports from across the galaxy. It's not just Earth. Every human colony, every human research station, every human trading post is empty. They're all gone. Intelligence Officer Tai Minute looked up from his workstation, his face pale. Sir, I've been checking the databases. The humans didn't just disappear. They took everything with them. Every research project they were working on, every technological design they shared with us, every trade agreement they signed has been terminated. What do you mean, terminated? All their patents have been revoked. All their scientific data has been encrypted and locked. Even the AIS they built for us have shut down. Tai Minute's voice was shaking. It's like they planned this months ago. Hyun-woo felt the weight of realization settling on his shoulders. This wasn't a sudden departure. This was a carefully planned exodus. The humans had been preparing to leave while the rest of the galaxy treated them like children. Get me a full report on what systems are already failing, he ordered. The reports came in quickly. On the mining world of Kepler 438b, the automated systems that human engineer Chang Ho had designed were already breaking down. The alien workers didn't understand how to fix them. 3 trading stations had lost power because their fusion reactors, designed by human scientists, needed maintenance that no other species knew how to perform. Sir, said Navigator Bo Young, the hyperspace routes are becoming unusable. Without human navigators like Captain Dongwoo, our ships are getting lost. What used to be a 3-day journey now takes 2 weeks. As the reports continued pouring in, a terrible picture began to form. The galaxy hadn't just lost its human population. It had lost the invisible threads that held galactic civilization together. Humans hadn't been junior partners after all. They had been the foundation that everything else was built on. The communication channel buzzed with panic as alien leaders realized what they had lost. But Hyun-woo was staring at something else entirely. On his personal communicator, there was a single message from Dr. So-minute, the human diplomat. It had been sent exactly 72 hours ago, just as the exodus began. The message was short: "Thank you for treating us as equals, Hyun-woo. Not everyone did. Take care of yourself." 6 months had passed since the humans disappeared, and Chief Engineer Tai-minute watched another space station die. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. Station Alpha 7 had just become another dark piece of metal floating in space. "That's the 20th station this month," reported his assistant, Young-soo, from the engineering bay. "The fusion reactors are failing faster than we can reach them." Tai-minute rubbed his tired eyes. He had been working 18-hour days trying to understand the human-designed power systems, but it was like trying to read a book written in a language he barely knew. The humans had left behind instruction manuals, but they assumed knowledge that other species simply didn't have. "Sir, incoming message from Trading Post Omega 7, called Communications Specialist Hyjin." Her voice was tight with worry. "Put them through," Tai-minute said. The screen flickered to life, showing Captain Vorth, a tall alien with gray skin and multiple eyes. Behind him, Tai-minute could see sparks flying from damaged equipment. "Chief Engineer, our life support systems are failing. The recycling units that Engineer Jinsu installed last year have stopped working. We don't know how to fix them." "How much time do you have?" asked Tai-minute. "Maybe 3 days before the air becomes unbreathable. We have 47 crew members here." Tai-minute felt his heart sink. This was the same conversation he had been having every day for months. Human engineers had built or improved systems throughout the galaxy, and now those systems were breaking down one by one. Without the humans to maintain them, space stations, colonies, and ships were failing across hundreds of worlds. "We'll send a rescue ship," Tai-minute promised, knowing it would take 5 days to reach them. He closed the channel and turned to his team. "Prepare emergency evacuation protocols for Omega 7. In another part of the galaxy, Admiral Sung-ho stood in the command center of the Defense Force headquarters, watching red warning lights flash across a massive star map. Each light represented a pirate attack, a border conflict, or a trade dispute that had turned violent. "Admiral, we just lost contact with the patrol fleet in Sector 12, reported Commander In-ho. "Intelligence suggests they were ambushed by raiders." Sung-ho studied the map with growing frustration. Before the humans left, Captain So-young and her team had been managing patrol routes across 37 sectors. They had an almost magical ability to predict where trouble would start and position ships to prevent it. Without them, the Defense Force was always arriving too late. "How many ships do we have available for rescue operations?" he asked. 17, sir. But without human navigators, each mission takes 3 times longer. Commander Minute-J's fleet got lost for 6 days last week trying to reach a distress call. The Admiral walked to the window and looked out at the busy spaceport. Ships came and went constantly, but everything moved slower now. Simple cargo runs that used to take days now took weeks. The hyperspace routes that human navigators had mapped with their strange intuitive abilities were becoming dangerous to use. Other species could follow the routes, but they couldn't adapt when something went wrong. "Sir," Commander In-ho continued, "we're also getting reports that the Kresh and Venturi systems have started fighting again. Without human mediators, their peace treaty has completely broken down." In the medical center of New Kepler Station, Dr. Vex 9 struggled to save the life of a young Zelati trader. The patient's unusual biology was failing in ways that the medical computers couldn't understand. 6 months ago, he would have called Dr. Young Mi, the human doctor who seemed to have an instinct for treating different alien species. She could look at a patient and somehow know what was wrong, even when all the tests came back normal. "Doctor, his vital signs are getting worse," said Nurse Core 12. Dr. Vex 9 checked his medical database again, but the recommended treatments weren't working. Human doctors had contributed thousands of medical procedures to the galactic database, but they had also provided something that couldn't be programmed into computers, the ability to think creatively under pressure. Meanwhile, on the agricultural world of New Terra, Farmer Zix watched his crops wither and die. The farming techniques that Dr. Minute-ho had taught him were more than just science. They required understanding the subtle signs that plants gave when they needed help. The human had been able to walk through a field and immediately know which areas needed more water, which needed different nutrients, and which were developing diseases. The grain harvest will be 30% smaller this year, Zix reported to the Planetary Council. Without human agricultural advisors, we're losing crops that we don't know how to save. Back on the Galactic Council headquarters, Emergency Coordinator Sunamai was trying to manage disasters across hundreds of worlds. Her desk was covered with reports of failing systems, economic collapse, and social unrest. The situation is getting worse every day, she told the council members during their emergency meeting. We're not just dealing with broken machines. We're dealing with the collapse of systems that humans designed to work together. They didn't just build things, they built networks. Councillor Rex, who had led the effort to reduce human influence 6 months earlier, sat quietly in his chair. The same politicians who had called humans primitive were now begging for their return. Have we made any progress in contacting them? Asked Ambassador Zelith. None, replied Sunamai. It's like they vanished completely. Even our most advanced scouts can't find any trace of where they went. The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the room. Humans hadn't been junior partners in galactic civilization. They had been the invisible foundation that everything else was built on. Their strange combination of logic and intuition, their ability to solve problems that stumped other species, their talent for bringing different groups together, all of it was gone. And the galaxy was slowly falling apart without them. Research Director Inho stood in the ruins of what had once been humanity's largest colony on Kepler 442b. The empty building stretched out before him like the skeleton of a dead giant. Windows stared blankly at the alien sky, and the streets that had once bustled with human activity were now silent except for the wind. Any luck with the computers? He asked Field Analyst Hawan, who was crouched next to a bank of servers in what used to be the colony's main research center. Hawan shook her head, her face frustrated. They wiped everything, sir. Not just deleted, completely scrubbed. It's like they used some kind of advanced quantum eraser. Even the backup systems are empty. Inho had been leading search teams for 8 months now, ever since the Galactic Council had realized that the humans weren't coming back on their own. His teams had visited 47 human settlements across 23 star systems, and the story was always the same. The humans had left behind empty buildings and completely clean computer systems. Sir, you need to see this, called out xenoarchaeologist Kyung Minute from across the street. He was standing in front of what had been a human family's home, pointing at something carved into the wall. Inho walked over and looked at the strange symbols cut deep into the metal. They weren't in any human language he recognized, and they definitely weren't in any alien language either. Can you translate it? Inho asked. I think so, Kyung Minute said, running his scanner over the marks. It's some kind of code. Give me a few minutes. He worked quietly while Inho waited. Finally, the scanner beeped. Got it. It says, we found friends who listen. Similar messages had been found on dozens of worlds. Short phrases that seemed to be aimed at the search teams. You showed us your true colors. We learned our worth elsewhere. Thank you for the lesson. Each message was signed with human names that Inho recognized, scientists and diplomats who had worked with the Galactic Council for years. Sir, I'm picking up an energy signature from the old spaceport, reported scanner operator Wonho over the radio. Something still active down there. The team made their way to the abandoned spaceport, where massive launch pads sat empty under the orange sky. In the control tower, they found what they were looking for, a single human-built AI terminal that was still functioning. Finally, muttered Hawan as she connected her equipment to the terminal. Maybe we'll get some answers. The screen flickered to life, showing the calm face of a human woman that Inho recognized as Dr. Sominit, the chief human diplomat. But this wasn't a recording, it was an interactive AI designed to look and sound exactly like her. Hello, the AI said with a polite smile. I assume you're looking for where we went. Yes, Inho said immediately. The galaxy is falling apart without human help. People are dying. We need to contact your leaders. The AI nodded thoughtfully. I understand your concern. Let me share a message from Professor Kyungsu and the Human Exodus Committee. The screen changed to show text that scrolled slowly upward. Thank you for showing us exactly how much you valued our contributions. We have found those who appreciate what we bring to the table. We wish you well in your future endeavors. That's it. Inho asked. What about the people who are suffering? What about your responsibility to help? The eye's expression didn't change. Responsibility is an interesting word. For 50 years, humans served as mediators, engineers, doctors, and peacekeepers throughout the galaxy. We were told repeatedly that we were junior partners, that our methods were primitive, that our emotional decision-making was holding back galactic progress. In-Ho felt uncomfortable. He remembered those discussions in the council chambers. Many of the older species had indeed treated humans like useful children. But that was just politics, he protested. Many of us respected human contributions. Some did, the AI agreed. Unfortunately, the majority did not. When the council voted to reduce human influence in galactic affairs, it became clear that we were valued only for our labor, not as equals. Senior analyst Sun Mi, who had joined the search team from galactic headquarters, stepped forward. Can you at least tell us where they went? We're offering full partnership now, equal status in all council decisions. The AI was quiet for a moment, as if thinking. The humans discovered that they were not the only species to face such treatment. There are others, ancient ones who have been watching galactic civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. These beings were impressed by humanity's unique combination of logic and emotion, of science and wisdom. Ancient ones? What does that mean? In-Ho demanded. Entities from the spaces between galaxies. They have been searching for species who could bring something new to the universe, creativity, adaptability, the ability to find unexpected solutions. They found humans fascinating. One-Ho, who had been quiet until now, asked the question that everyone was thinking. Are the humans coming back? The AI smiled sadly. The humans are learning things that your species abandoned millions of years ago, how to balance technology with wisdom, how to grow without destroying, how to explore without conquering. They are being taught by beings who remember when the universe was young. So that's a no, Sun Mi said flatly. That's a not yet, the AI corrected. Perhaps someday, when galactic civilization has learned to value cooperation over domination, partnership over exploitation. When species work together instead of expecting others to solve their problems. The AI's image began to fade. The humans left one final message: learn to stand on your own feet. When you truly understand what that means, perhaps we can be friends again. The screen went dark, leaving the search team standing in silence in the empty control tower. Deep Space Scout Woojin had been alone in his exploration ship for 3 months, searching the empty regions beyond the galactic rim. The Galactic Council had sent dozens of scout ships to look for any trace of humanity, but most had returned with nothing. Woojin was different though. He had worked closely with human navigators for years and understood their unconventional thinking patterns. Computer, run another deep scan of this sector, he said, settling into his pilot's chair with a cup of bitter alien coffee. Scanning, the ship's AI replied in its flat voice. Wait. Detecting unusual energy readings at bearing 27 Mark 4. The signature does not match any known technology. Woojin sat up straight, his heart suddenly beating faster. Show me. The main screen filled with swirling colors that hurt to look at directly. Energy patterns twisted through space in ways that seemed to break the laws of physics. In the center of it all, Woojin could make out structures that looked impossible, buildings that curved through dimensions that shouldn't exist, ships that moved like living creatures through the void. By the stars, he whispered. Get me Captain Jae-hyun on the emergency channel. Within hours, a small fleet of Galactic Council ships had arrived at Woojin's coordinates. Captain Jae-hyun, a veteran explorer who had seen strange things throughout the galaxy, stared at his instruments in disbelief. Navigator Bo-young, are you getting the same readings I am? He asked. Bo-young, who had learned her trade from human instructors, nodded slowly. Yes sir. The energy output from those structures is off the charts. And the way they're moving through space, it's like they're swimming through reality instead of flying through it. Sir, called out Communications Officer Minutsu, I'm detecting ships approaching our position. They're unlike anything in our database. On the main screen, 3 vessels came into view. They looked grown rather than built, with smooth curves that seemed to shift and change as they moved. Each ship was easily twice the size of the largest Galactic Council battleship, but they moved with the grace of dancers. Unknown vessels, this is Captain Jae-hyun of the Galactic Council Exploration Fleet. Please identify yourselves, he broadcast on all standard frequencies. The response came immediately, and the voice that answered made every alien on the bridge freeze in shock. It was human. This is Admiral Jinwoo of the Human Collective. State your business in our territory. Captain Jae-hyun looked around his bridge at the stunned faces of his crew. Admiral Jinwoo? This is Captain Jae-hyun. We've been searching for humanity for 2 years. Where have you been? There was a pause before the human voice replied. We've been learning, Captain. Permission granted to approach our outer station, but maintain a distance of 10,000 kilometers. Any hostile action will be met with immediate response. As the Galactic Council ships moved closer, they could see the full extent of what humanity had built. Space stations the size of moons floated in perfect formation, connected by streams of energy that created geometric patterns across the darkness. Gardens filled with impossible plants grew in the vacuum of space, protected by fields of shimmering light. "How is this possible?" whispered Scout Wu Jin, who had transferred to the flagship. 2 years ago, human technology was barely more advanced than ours. The answer came when they were allowed to dock at one of the smaller stations. Admiral Jin Wu met them at the airlock, but he was not the same man they remembered. His eyes held a depth that seemed ancient, and when he moved, there was a confidence that spoke of knowledge far beyond his years. "Welcome to Haven Station," Jin Wu said with a polite smile. "I apologize for the security measures, but we've learned to be careful about who we trust." Behind him stood other humans, Ambassador Mi Young, who had once negotiated trade agreements for the Galactic Council, Chief Engineer Sung Minute, who had designed fusion reactors for dozens of worlds, and Dr. Hai, whose medical innovations had saved countless lives. They all had the same look in their eyes, the look of people who had seen wonders beyond imagination. "How did you do all this?" Captain Jae-hyun asked, gesturing at the incredible technology surrounding them. "We had teachers," Mi Young replied simply. "Beings who have been watching galactic civilizations for millions of years. They were impressed by humanity's unique qualities." "What qualities?" asked Navigator Bo Young. Dr. Hai stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "The ability to combine logic with emotion. To find creative solutions where others see only problems. To adapt and grow without losing what makes us human." Chief Engineer Sung Minute added, "These beings, we call them the Ancients, have seen thousands of species rise and fall. Most become too logical and lose their creativity, or too emotional and destroy themselves. Humans were different." "Where are these Ancients?" Scout Wu Jin asked, looking around nervously. Admiral Jin Wu smiled. "They're here, but you can't see them yet. They exist in dimensions that most species can't perceive. They've been teaching us to see reality as it truly is, not just the 3 dimensions that most life understands, but the deeper patterns that connect everything. The technology you see around us," Ambassador Mi Young explained, "is what becomes possible when you understand that consciousness and matter are 2 sides of the same thing. The ancients showed us how to work with reality instead of fighting against it." Captain Jae-hyun felt overwhelmed. "We came here to ask for your help. The galaxy is falling apart without you." The humans exchanged glances, and Admiral Jin Woo's expression became sad but firm. "We know. We've been watching." The Galactic Council's emergency delegation arrived at the edge of human space in the most humble ships they could find. President Jeon Woo, who had once dismissed humans as primitive problem solvers, now sat nervously in the passenger compartment of a small diplomatic vessel. Behind him were the leaders of 17 different species, all desperate for humanity's return. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human collective," reported Communications Officer Sejin, her voice tight with anxiety. "Put them through," Jeon Woo said, straightening his formal robes. The screen flickered to life, showing Prime Minister Sejin sitting in what appeared to be a garden floating in space. Real flowers bloomed around her in impossible colors, and streams of light moved like living rivers through the air behind her. She looked older than when she had left the galaxy 2 years ago, but there was a calmness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "President Jeon Woo," she said with a polite nod. "We were wondering when you would come." "Prime Minister Sejin, thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Jeon Woo began, trying to keep his voice steady. "The galaxy needs human help. We're facing disasters across hundreds of worlds. Without human expertise, our civilizations are collapsing." Behind Sejin, other human leaders came into view. Fleet Admiral Chang Ho, whose strategic mind had once prevented 3 different wars, stood quietly with his arms crossed. Chief Scientist Yi Jin, who had solved fusion power problems that stumped alien researchers for decades, watched the delegation with curious but distant eyes. "Tell me about these disasters," Sejin said, settling back in her chair. Ambassador Zelith leaned forward, his tentacles writhing with desperation. "My people are starving. The farming techniques that Dr. Minute taught us were more than just science. Without human agricultural advisors, we've lost 60% of our food production. Children are dying." The Kresh leader clicked his mandibles nervously. "Our wars have returned. Without human mediators like Captain So-young, we cannot make peace with our neighbors. 3 systems have been completely destroyed. One by one, the alien leaders told their stories. Space stations failing without human engineers. Trade routes becoming unusable without human navigators. Medical crises that alien doctors couldn't solve without human intuition. Economic systems collapsing without the creative thinking that humans brought to complex problems. Prime Minister Sujin listened to each story without interruption. When they finished, she was quiet for a long moment. These problems, she said finally, existed before humans arrived in galactic civilization. How did your species solve them then? President Jianwu felt uncomfortable. Well, we managed, but not as well. Human contributions made everything more efficient. More efficient, repeated Chief Scientist Yi Jin, speaking for the first time. Is that how you saw us? As efficiency tools? No, that's not what I meant, Jianwu protested. We valued human contributions. We're offering full partnership now, equal status in all council decisions, equal representation in government, equal access to resources. Fleet Admiral Chang Ho stepped forward, his expression unreadable. The same partnership you offered when you reduced our voting rights? The same equality you showed when you called our methods primitive. The alien delegation shifted uncomfortably. They all remembered those council sessions where human representatives had sat quietly while other species debated their fate as if they weren't in the room. We made mistakes, admitted Ambassador Zelith. We underestimated what you brought to our civilization. We treated you unfairly. You treated us like useful servants, said Chief Diplomat Minute Seo, joining the conversation. Her voice was calm but firm. You valued what we could do for you, never who we were as people. Prime Minister Sujin stood up and walked to what appeared to be a window, though it showed stars that seemed to be singing in harmonious light. The beings who became our teachers showed us something interesting. They've watched thousands of galactic civilizations rise and fall. Do you know what they all had in common? The alien leaders waited in silence. They all eventually faced the same choice, Sujin continued. They could learn to truly work together, not just cooperating when convenient, but actually valuing each other as equals, or they could continue treating some species as more important than others. Most chose the second path. What happened to them? President Jianwu asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. They collapsed, Fleet Admiral Chang Ho said simply. Not from outside attacks or natural disasters, but from their own inability to see beyond their prejudices. They became too dependent on the species they looked down on, and when those species finally left or died out, everything fell apart. Chief Scientist Yi Jin moved to stand beside Sujin. Our new allies taught us that true civilization isn't about who has the biggest ships or the most advanced technology. It's about whether different types of minds can work together as equals. So what do we need to do? Ambassador Zelith asked desperately. Tell us how to fix this. Prime Minister Sujin turned back to face the delegation, and for the first time, there was something like sympathy in her expression. You need to learn to solve your own problems without expecting others to clean up your messes. You need to discover what cooperation actually means, instead of just using that word when you want something. How long will that take? President Jianwu asked. For most species? About a century or two, said Chief Diplomat Minute Seo. Maybe longer. It depends on how quickly you can learn to see each other as equals instead of tools. The human leaders began to step back from the screen, clearly preparing to end the conversation. Wait, called out President Jianwu. Will you ever come back? Prime Minister Sujin paused and smiled, not the polite diplomatic smile they remembered, but something warmer and sadder. When you truly understand what partnership means, we'll know. And then, maybe, we can be friends again. The transmission ended, leaving the alien delegation staring at a blank screen as human ships disappeared into the cosmic deep, carrying with them the galaxy's last hope for easy solutions.